Hello, and welcome to Poems You Need, where two poets who believe in the transformative power of language share the poems that sustain and inspire us. Hi, I'm Melissa Studdard,
And I'm Kelli Russell Agodon.
and today we are sharing poems by Jennifer Espinoza from this very beautiful book, I Don't Want to Be Understood. And I'm going to start with a poem called Personal Statement, which I really wanted to share because of how it is just so deeply human. And I love the ending. So, personal statement. I don't believe I was born, maybe emerged from a soupy formation of gaze and other wild things instead. I've gone on and on telling you about how I created myself, took a photograph of what I was given, tore it up, set it on fire, inhaled its smoke, and grew 20 times my size. All of this has been said. Today, I want to make this space my own and project my light through every surface. I think by now I've earned this. What with the breathing exercises just to leave the house and the hyper awareness of every blade of grass's movement, and the drinking and the getting high each night to stave off the nightmares. You know, just girly things. So here's what you need to understand. Anytime I'm doing something I'm afraid of. This makes each experience seem new and old at the same time. I'm always like, I don't give a fuck. When in reality, I am literally going to die from how much of a fuck I give. Also, I'm a witch and I get all my powers from the wind. Wow, aren't I special? Don't you want to love me with all of your heart for the next 10 seconds? Don't you want to rescue me from all the things that make you feel safe?
Oh my gosh, you're right. I do love that ending. And yes, I do want to love her with all of my heart for more than 10 seconds.
For more than 10 seconds, yes.
Exactly. And you had said, this idea I've been thinking about. Your first words were that this is poem makes you feel, or it's deeply human. And
Yes.
I really felt that because of where it begins. I don't believe I was born, maybe emerged. So we're in kind of this, like, the myth of us, but then we hit all these points which are um like so human. I'm doing something I'm afraid of, and it totally had Capricorn vibes when it said, like, I'm always like, I don't give a fuck, when in reality I'm literally going to die from how much of a fuck I give. And I
Yeah.
thought, isn't that funny as humans? It's like all of our human folly. We present as we're confident and we know what we're doing. And so the way she hits on these points of maybe we're not so sure and maybe we're just pretending, it really does hit the humanness and the human folly of us.
Yes, absolutely. You're so right. And I think that it's a really great thing that poets can do sometimes. I mean, at their very, very best, this is what a poet is doing, is making us feel like, yeah, that's me. She is speaking my truth. And I didn't even totally realize I felt that way, or maybe I wasn't quite admitting it to myself yet. Also, that ending, oh my gosh, like the idea of that loving someone with all your heart for just like 10 seconds would change everything so much that suddenly you would understand them, and you would understand that maybe the things that they have had to say or do in order to make you feel safe are
Mhm.
exactly the things that they need to be rescued from.
Yeah. And one thing which I really love she does in here is kind of her voice, just girly things, like after mentioning, like, getting stoned and drinking and that. Um, but it's that voice, I think, that she does so well in the end where you said, don't you want to love me with all your heart for the next 10 seconds? I felt very spoken to as a reader. Like, isn't that what we do when we're reading someone's poem is we fall in love with them? And I
Yeah.
felt like she hit on this, maybe like, is this why we write? Like, just
Yeah.
fall in love with me or see something of yourself in me so I feel less alone. I always say I write poems to make others feel less alone. Maybe I write them to make myself feel less alone.
Yeah. And I love the beginning. I don't believe I was born, maybe emerged from a soupy formation of gaze and other wild things instead. And I've seen actually two versions of this poem. And in the first version, I believe I've got it in the correct order. The first version, it was other beautiful things
That's
instead.
right.
Yeah, it was
That's
changed to other wild things. And I love that because I mean, in a way, it's like what's wild and and feral and, this soup that we came from is so much more interesting than beauty.
absolutely. And I think that's a really good transition into my poem because her poems are so much about just life. And that's, you'll hear the first line of mine. But you'll see similarities between these two. And my poem that I chose of hers is called It Is Important to Be Something. This is like a life. This is lifelike. I climb inside a mistake and remake myself in the shape of a better mistake. A nice pair of glasses without any lenses, shoes that don't quite fit, a chest that always hurts. There is a checklist of things you need to do to be a person. I don't want to be a person, but there isn't a choice. So I work my way down and kiss the feet. I work my way up and lick the knee. I give you my skull to do with it whatever you please. You grow flowers from my head and trim them too short. I paint my nails nice and pretty, and who cares? Who gives a shit? I'm trying not to give a shit, but it doesn't fit well on me. I wear my clothes. I wear my body. I walk out in the grass and turn red at the sight of everything.
Wow. What a poem, and you read it so beautifully. And, I mean, I see so many connections, like, I'm trying not to give a shit, but it doesn't
Yeah.
fit well on me. That's amazing, and there's so much in here about this humanity that drew me to her work. The checklist of things you need to do to be a person.
I think that's why I so connected with this poem and this opening second line is I climb inside a mistake and remake myself in the shape of a better mistake. And not only is that a little bit of like a puzzle, like climbing back into the shape of a better mistake, it also has all those like A sounds and that rhyme and that bam, bam, bam. It just kind of hits. So we start off with this is like a life, this is lifelike, which has that fun wordplay. And then we get bam, 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 bam. And I thought, wow, I was just so present in this poem with the sounds she used.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you brought up that passage because I was thinking about it in the context of the writing, the as a topic showing up also in her poems because here, like, yes, this is so human, right? You climb out of a mistake and you make another mistake, but also, like, anyone who writes knows when there's a problem and you fix it, so often you create a totally new problem
Yeah.
that either then you have to deal with or you have to make a decision which problem is worse and maybe go back to the way you had it. So I thought that was also a fascinating sort of look at like the writer person parallel.
Exactly. Yeah, because I do exactly what you said. I had that feeling of this poem presses up against perfectionist vibes, which are can be very much America. And this little these two lines, you grow flowers from my head and trim them too short. I loved it for a couple reasons, just because it even had like somebody growing something beautiful, then taking them away by, like, cutting them too short, but it also, for me, had that, like, oh, there's even that kind of the vanity of you I had these beautiful flowers and now they're too short, and again, that was really like a surrealist human moment, which I thought she did so well to get such, to get surrealism into a poem that isn't really a surrealist poem.
Yeah, yeah. The whole collection, I think I've been trying to just really trying to think about what flowers mean in this collection because it's a recurring motif. And it is in the way that you were just talking about it. Like we've seen a lot of poets write about flowers, but the way that she writes about them is surreal and it's different, and I feel like there is really an underlying symbol there of growth and transformation and something so much deeper than we're used to seeing when poets talk about flowers and poems, and I don't totally have my finger on it yet, but I'm gonna keep reading it until I figure it out.
I I think it's like growth and change and blooming and it's funny, I believe her last book was called There Should Be Flowers. So
Right.
it's really interesting that you notice that because I love it when poets have conversations with previous books or there's a touchstone or motif throughout the collection. Those are some of my favorite satisfying books. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. We could do a whole episode on poets' books.
That would be really cool.
The touch motifs. Yeah, these poems really com converse with each other well.
They do, they
Yeah.
do. The whole collection is just fabulous. I mean, I highly recommend it to anyone who enjoyed the poems today because some collections have, like, weaker and stronger moments, and this one is just strong throughout.
Yeah, I heard her read and I was just that was the first time to go back to your poem, I fell in love with her for more than 10 seconds.
Oh, Kelly.
Thank you for celebrating poetry with us today. Information about the poet and works featured can be found on the episode page. And if you enjoyed today's readings, please press the like button and subscribe so not to miss another poem. You can also share the episode with a friend, and we hope you do. Until next time, we wish you beauty, inspiration, and very meaningful days. May you always have the poems you need.